on yesterday's show, you brought up the Dolphins and how they've set things up for Tua Tagovailoa. And you and I are in agreement. But the key distinction here between the Dolphins and the Panthers, or any other team that wants to invest in the young quarterback that might have some deficiencies, but if they process, if they're accurate, if you understand the league is going in a direction where you need the Tyreek Hills of the world to get you the yak. Well, the Dolphins went about it and hit in the way you should. Whereas the Panthers, as I mentioned yesterday, are having several bills come due for them, and it's limited what they can do to get better around Bryce Young. Because, and I'm going to go ahead and call out Josh Graham, who on his radio show yesterday was saying, all these things are true, but Bryce Young bears responsibility as well for being bad. And it's like, not 2 weeks into the season for a rookie when you can see with your own eyes that this team is not at the level it needs to be around Bryce Young, from the offensive line to the wide receivers who cannot get open. Pro Football Focus put out one of those little charts about, wide open windows and completions with wide open windows. You know who's in the corner with the least amount of wide open opportunities and the inability to connect? Was Bryce Young. Like he's on an island. That's how bad the Panthers have been so far this season, 2 weeks in. So how did the Dolphins get here? The Dolphins got here thanks to a blockbuster trade in 2019 with offensive lineman Laramie Tunsil. Okay. Laramie Tunsil got to the Houston Texans in return for first rounders in 2020 and 2021 and a second rounder in 21.
So those are 3 prime
picks. Yeah. That 21 first rounder ended up being a number 3 because the Texans sucked. The Dolphins then flipped that with the 49ers, who moved up to get Trey Lance. They moved back to the 12 spot. They added a first and third rounder for 22 and then a first rounder in 23. But the Dolphins were not done. They actually made another move in that draft to move back up and take Jalen Waddle. Key piece to what they're trying to do with Tua Tagovailoa. That 22 first round pick they got from the Niners, they used that and some later round picks to get Tyreek Hill from the Chiefs. And then later in that season, they added Bradley Chubb with those collected draft assets. They felt, all right, now we got to get better defensively, so let's go bring in that Pac Pro. Now, to be fair, you got to hit, man. You got to hit. And the Dolphins seem to have hit, and provided that everyone stays healthy, hey, they could get pretty far in the playoffs. They could win that division. Meanwhile, the Panthers from 2019 have essentially stepped on several rakes. So let's go back to 2019. It's funny. You mentioned how the Marty Herney is really good with that first pick.
Yep.
And then after that, things get a little squirrely.
Correct.
That tracks. 2019, Brian Burns.
At 16, man.
Hey, man.
That's a home run and a half.
That's a
grand slam.
That is a hell of a pick. However, they took a flyer on Will Grier in the third round to be Cam Newton's backup. Lost cause. And actually, the less said about the 2019 draft for the Carolina Panthers, the better, okay? 2020, Derek Brown. Hey, man, hell of a 2022. Hell of a scene with Michael Thomas after the loss in Monday night in the tunnel.
Okay, now, though we get into 2020, that's a Matt Rule draft.
That is a Matt Rule. No, I know.
I'm not assigning this one to
that's fine.
To Marty.
I'm talking about Panthers in general here. In general. All right. So Derek Brown, good pickup. But they also went with and that was over real quick. That was over Jordan Love. Jordan Love was available in that draft.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. No, Jordan Love was not available in that draft. There was some talk about Jordan Love getting traded, and they could have made a move to get Jordan Love, but they took Brown in
2020. They took all defensive players.
Yes.
At the time, if we could relitigate this, the one player I thought they could have taken, who I maybe should have taken, was Isaiah Simmons, and obviously he's been let go by the Cardinals. So, at the time, you're going, oh, okay, the receivers that were taken early in that draft were Henry Ruggs. Yikes.
Oh, wait, Jordan Love was in that 2020
Jerry
draft.
Jeudy. Yeah, but Jordan Love was a guy that the Packers went back in and took.
Yes.
He was not someone beforehand. Now, hindsight, right? You had DJ Moore from the previous year. You're not going to take a receiver, but woo boy. CeeDee Lamb at 17, Justin Jefferson at 22. You're going, yikes.
They took Jeremy Chin.
That's hindsight.
Jeremy Chin
was a good pick.
They didn't pick up his option, though. He's an unrestricted free agent after this year, and I think he only played 35% of the snaps on Monday night. So there's something weird going on with Jeremy Chin.
Jalen Hurts was a scratch off for the Eagles.
He really was. He really was. So let's take 2021.
Mm-hmm.
J.C. Horn over Justin Fields
or
Mac Jones. I know how you feel about this.
How I feel about
in defense of J.C. Horn, when healthy, he's actually been productive. But of course, that's bezdelicating the whole situation. He hasn't been healthy this season included. But on the flip side, Justin Fields hasn't proven himself in Chicago yet. And people are already talking about the next move. And Mac Jones is...
You're in love with defense. The guy didn't play. He didn't play the year. I get it.
I get it.
No. You're Matt Rule. You're sitting here saying, we're going to win through defense. We're going to do all this. The best player in the NFL right now is not a quarterback. Yeah, it's Micah Parsons. And he went 4 picks later.
There you go. So there's a miss. There's a miss. I'll agree with you.
There are a lot of misses in the 21 draft.
2022. Kenny Pickett was there, but they went with Ike
I'm fine with that.
That's fine. That's a sound choice. Again, what I'm getting at is, for the most part, they've made some sound choices. And with the case of Ike Ekwonu, we know that offensive linemen can be voodoo. I mean, it's like goalies in the NHL, man. Like offensive linemen and how you pick them and how they develop is all voodoo. But 2022 is a prime example of where the Carolina Panthers have ultimately lost their minds with quarterbacks. They traded their 4th round pick and a 23 third round pick to take Matt Corral in the 3rd round. They moved up to take Matt Corral. He was waived. Now he's on the practice squad. At least at last check, he's on the practice squad for the New England Patriots.
He got waived from them too.
I thought this week they brought him back on.
Sorry, I can't keep track. Matt Corral will never play in the NFL. We saw that in his first preseason.
Let's go back to 2021. They traded for Sam Darnold in exchange for a late 21 6th rounder and a 2nd and 4th rounder in 2022. And of course, there was the summer of 22 for Baker Mayfield, which I think they ended up giving up a 5th round pick because it was conditional, didn't play. And of course, there's the whammy. All right. There's the price that you paid to get Bryce Young. DJ Moore, 2 first-round draft picks, 2 second-round draft picks, one of which came from the Christian McCaffrey deal.
One of the ones is a flip, so I don't necessarily count that.
But
you gave up an extra one.
But their 24 and 25 drafts coming up, they have no pick in the first round next year, and they have a first-round draft pick in 24, but no second-round draft pick in 2024.
Yeah. We've talked about this before with the Panthers. Their messaging is bad.
Very, very
and
bad.
They've tried this before. Again, things I would love to give them credit for. This year, they've tried to improve their messaging.
Yeah.
The problem is, as you're illustrating here with their draft moves, they're not in a win now mode. So and then when you look at the players that they have, and now you're sitting here going, well, how do you help this quarterback who you just tied the franchise's future to?
Right.
How?
There was one way. And this is all leading up to one thing to tie it back to Laramie Tunsil. You got one chip that you can use and leverage to bring back those picks, like the Dolphins did with Laramie Tunsil. But they said no. I'm talking about Brian Burns. There was a conversation with Mike Kay of the Charlotte Observer and a few others at a debate as to whether or not the Carolina Panthers were rebuilding or not. That gets to your point about messaging.
Yeah.
When they decided that they were not going to trade away Brian Burns, when they had already traded away other assets to start bringing picks in, that was an indication that they were going to pay Brian Burns. We talked to Mike Kay about this a couple of weeks ago. When Nick Bosa got his deal done, my expectation was, okay, market's set.
We go.
Here's the percentage. Here we go. Instead, they've indicated that Brian Burns is not going to get this deal. They could franchise tag him next year. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, hold up. If you weren't going to pay him, which I was in favor of, I was in favor of them not making that move and actually locking down Brian Burns and
not
moving
giving
forward.
Up the player. Yes.
Don't give up the player. You got this guy. Don't give him up. But if now you're not going to pay him, well, then what the hell were you thinking when you didn't trade him?